I'm so sorry. Hey guys, I'm back with another video, and if you can tell by the title, this will be a comic book collection. Now, before I actually dive into the comics that I own, I just want to say that I don't have the biggest collection just because I either only buy comics that I really want because I read them beforehand and I just really liked it, or it's just a classic that you know you need to have, or it was very, very cheap and I could not resist and I just bought it. So, funny thing, when I was compiling all the books that I have, I did not even realize that good old little Sandra read comics before she even realized like what the hell they are. So I have Bones. I think I only actually owned 2 of these, and then at this very cheap bookstore in Canada, it was, as you can tell, $1, so I had to buy it. So Bones is that comic that you like read as a preteen. If you haven't read Bones, I definitely recommend that you try to find a copy, whether online or purchase it, because libraries are closed. But it was just a really good series. Obviously by the title, Bones, the characters are little bone guys, but it was just so cute and nice. Interestingly enough, I never actually finished it because I didn't have all the books, so I could not finish it, and I don't know why I didn't get it from the library. Don't ask me, I don't know what the hell I did as a kid. The next one is, so funny thing, at the bookstore I went to, surprisingly, like the guy said that they didn't have Scott Pilgrim, so I kind of gave up on that. But they have this section of books that are like really cheap, and by really cheap I mean like either under $1 or maybe like max $3. So they had volume 5 of Scott Pilgrim versus the Universe, and this book is, the plot is based in Toronto, which I just love, especially as a Canadian. Any chance that any type of story is set in Canada, I'm very happy, because usually it's like America and it's like, oh, okay. But it's in black and white. I'm gonna guess that they have colored editions as well, but even though I haven't read any of the actual comics, I just knew I had to pick this up because it was like just that moment where it's like, I've been trying to find Scott Pilgrim book, I've never been able to find it every time I go, and suddenly there's one. I know it's number 5, but I had to get it. Now, moving on to the section of comic books that I just had to buy because of the price that they were set at. So I'm first gonna show the ones that I bought which I haven't read before. So as you can tell, the bookstore, it's BMV. If you've ever been there, it's an amazing place. Like, so many of their things are so cheap, and that's literally the only bookstore I go to, because as much as I love Chapters, which is now Indigo, it's just their comics are so expensive compared to buying it at BMV. But they had a 3 for $10 deal. I really cannot resist, so I bought this Justice League comic, which I've never actually read before. But then, funny enough, they also had these 2 Suicide Squad comics, which I did read back in the time where I was really like keen on trying to stay up to date to like the comics. Like, I read all of the New 52 Suicide Squad, and I think I tried to read the newer version, but that was probably like 4 years ago. And there's just so many like types of comics that I read, it'd be like one thing, but then you'd need to read a different comic series to like fully understand the story. And it's just too much for me to like stay in like line with, especially at the time of high school, going into university. So I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to stop. And then the other two comics are, surprise, also Suicide Squad comics, because I really did like the Suicide Squad comics. Granted, the movie kind of broke my heart because I really thought that was gonna be like the comic books, but it was not dark and edgy like any high schooler would hope it would be. But yeah, since it was really cheap, I thought it was just a fun addition to my comic book collection. If it was like $10 for each volume, then I definitely wouldn't have gotten it, but as you can tell, it was $2 and the other ones were 3 for $10, so I had to do that. Now, these next ones, I also have not read these comics. Part of the reason why I bought them is because of the covers and how cheap they were, but I love comic book issue designs. Like, I love it when they have like the variant covers, I believe that's what you call it, but I just love it when they have one comic and they have a bunch of different editions for the cover. It's just, the art is so nice in general. Comic book art is just so amazing. Now for these comics, I didn't even really look to see what the story was about. I just saw the covers I liked the most. So we got Spider-Man, we got another Spider-Man, we got the X-Men, we got the Avengers, and we got the Secret Defenders with Doctor Strange. And I think this is possibly my favorite one just because of like how cool it is. And these comics were all 50 cents each, which I know I'm most likely not gonna read them, but it's kind of hard not to buy the comic when it's like the cover is so cool and you need to buy it. Moving on to comics that still I haven't read, but I've been meaning to read for a long time, and these comics are just ones that I know are gonna be so good. It's just, I don't have the time. I definitely do have the time now, so I gotta read all of these, but the first one is this comic I was trying to get for a really long time, and I know that it was available. I was just trying to find it at the best price, because I know at Indigo it was a little pricey, and then when I went to BMV, I don't know if the price has changed, but I got The Dark Knight Returns for $12. I don't know if that's like cheap for this one, but I just always wanted it. I watched the 2-part animated movie and I loved it, so I already know what the plot line is about. But if you just looking at the art in the book, it's so good, and I just love Frank Miller so much. You know when there's like a really good comic book writer and artist and just all together they're amazing. That's what I think of Frank Miller, and that's also what I think about Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. Oh my god, every comic they release, it's so good. I can't. The next one is Joker. Now, I know this one is a little bit more, I can't think of the specific word, but basically it's a lot darker than other comics. You can tell that I haven't read it because it's still in the plastic, but I really want to read this one. I've seen pages from it and the art just looks amazing. Now the next one, I heard that it's really good, and this cover for the volume, it's just, I love it so much. Dark Days, yes, the DC metal. I'm so excited to read it. I know they have the, I'm pretty sure this one is the one that has the Joker that laughs and the Joker Batman, but I'm just so excited to read it because it just looks amazing. And the next one, this is kind of funny because I've had it for I think 4 years now. I think this is the longest comic I've owned that I have not read. I've seen the 3-hour long movie. I haven't read it yet just because of how long it is. I got, I believe it's like the special edition Watchmen comic, and it's just, you can tell, it's very long. It's like, I need to spend a good 2-3 days just reading this comic because I know it's gonna be amazing. It's just, I think I'm just a little bit intimidated by how long it is. But those are all the comics that I own that I haven't read. Now to my comic book that I have read and I love. So I actually watched the animated movie first before reading this, but Batman Year One is really great. The art is just as amazing as the animation in the film is. Now, I want to save the best comics for last, in my opinion. So, we have this really awesome, really fucking cool cover. I was so happy when I got it, and even when you take off the sleeve, the cover is still so amazing, which just, it has me in awe. For like a comic book, I think this one is the best cover I own just because of how epic it is. See, you don't even need the sleeve for it to be just cool as fuck. And it was a really good comic, so I haven't actually read into that storyline other than the button, but it's the deluxe edition, so obviously it is gonna have the cool cover and all, but I really do want to try to get into that storyline because it's like the DC characters like Batman and then Watchmen. So I feel like that's gonna be such an epic read. Next one, if you have a comic book collection, you need to have this comic because it's just like, it's a classic. And although the animated movie wasn't the best, like they had amazing actors, but it was a little bit fell through, especially with the added part that they put in it. Some of you might know what I'm referencing to, but if not, The Killing Joke. You know you need to have The Killing Joke if you're gonna have a comic book collection, because it's just one of those stories that is just so amazing. It's like the Joker's origin story, but with the Joker, it's always like, what really is his origin story? It's just one of the possible origin stories that he has, but it's an awesome comic. If you're trying to get into comics, I do recommend that you just Google like the classics, so like The Killing Joke, The Dark Knight Returns. You need to just pick those up and just spend a day reading comics. Now, the next one is Joker Endgame, and the cool thing about this one is that it's like all of the comics in the Endgame storyline. So it's not just like Batman, but I don't know if there's Teen Titans that they also had, but there are like other plots that were involved in it as well, and it's just amazing. See, they show like the cover for like the comic, the individual issue that was in it, but I'm just happy that I could get it all together because that's one of the problems for me with reading comics. It's just trying to read them all in chronological order, so I'm not just reading all the Batman comics and then it's like Oh, but you need to read the Justice League comics as well in order to have the full story click, so it's just really cool that I could buy the entire volume of all of the comics in it. Last but not least, I saved the best for last, Joker, Death of the Family. Now, it's not Death in the Family where the Joker killed Robin, but it is just this epic story of a fucking faceless Joker just trying to show Batman that he's the only one that he needs in life. And I think this is actually the very first comic, if you don't include the bonus ones, that I bought myself. I was so happy. I remember reading it and it was just so cool because, like, for example, you have the Suicide Squad part of the storyline, but then you also have, oh look, Catwoman. So like the Endgame one, you're not just reading like the Batman portion only, like issues relating to this storyline. You get all of them in one, and I just love that so much because, first of all, it's an easier read because you don't have to find all of the comics that are just for the Death of the Family storyline. You get it all in one, so you can just read it in one sitting if you really want to, but it's just, I think this is my favorite comic book that I own. Not for the cover, but just for the story in general. I just really love the story. And then my second favorite comic, I think, has to be the Button one, just because of the cover, but it's awesome. But yeah, this was my comic book collection. I don't know if it was that big, because I'm not trying to spend that much money on comics. I also don't have that much room on my shelves for comic books, because although I do love reading comics, I do love reading different types of books as well, specifically sci-fi. Right now, I'm just loving reading Philip K. Dick's books. He's a really good author. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a huge thumbs up. Subscribe to the button below. Comment down if you have any comic books, which ones you have, or if you want to start a collection. And yeah, I will see you next time.